You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the 12th Doctor story, Death in Heaven. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, please go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a review of the podcast. It's really important, really helpful when you do that. That's the primary way that we get the podcast out to new listeners, including you sharing the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community and reach more folks who would be interested in it. I also want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets. So we're talking about Death in Heaven. This is the second part of the two-parter season finale from season 8, I'm fairly certain, of the 12th Doctor. And so, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens here?
Last time, the 12th Doctor and Clara broke into the 3W facility inside of St. Paul's Cathedral, which they discovered was run by Cybermen. This time, while the Doctor is off having his mind blown by Missy, the new female incarnation of the Master, Clara is left alone. When a Cyberman attacks her, she puts on an elaborate ruse, claiming that Clara Oswald never existed and that she is, in fact, the Doctor. And it's oddly plausible. Meanwhile, UNIT shows up and takes Missy and the Doctor into custody. They then board a plane and declare the Doctor to be president of Earth for the duration of the current alien invasion. Missy causes havoc and leaps out of the plane. Also, meanwhile, in the Nethersphere, Danny Pink and the other inhabitants are being transferred back to Earth, where they will awake in new Cyberman bodies. Certain Cybermen have already exploded themselves and turned into clouds of Cyberman nanobots. The nanobots will rain on every graveyard on Earth and turn every deceased human being into a Cyberman. They will then kill the human race and emerge even stronger unless the Doctor does something to stop them. Missy presents all the current Cybermen to the Doctor as a present. He can use them as an army to do good in the universe, proving that he is not so different than the Master. However, Danny Pink has rescued Clara, and even though he's in intense emotional pain, he has promised never to hurt her even if she turns off all his emotions. The Doctor realizes that love isn't an emotion but a promise, and Danny will never hurt Clara. And Danny volunteers to take the other current Cybermen and burn the clouds of nanoparticles to stop Missy's plan. He does so. Afterwards, Clara is about to kill Missy, but the Doctor volunteers to do so instead in order to save Clara from taking life. But before he can do so, Missy reveals the coordinates of Gallifrey, and the Cyberman Brigadier apparently kills Missy to spare the Doctor from taking life. He then leaves Earth. Afterwards, Danny uses one of Missy's devices to return the kid he accidentally killed to Earth, sacrificing his own chance to come back in the process. Clara and the Doctor then meet in a restaurant, and they both lie to each other. The Doctor lies and says that Missy told the truth about where Gallifrey was, but we see in a flashback that she didn't, and it reveals that the Doctor found nothing at the coordinates. Thinking that the Doctor has found his way home, Clara lies and says that she and Danny are doing fine together now that he's returned. She and the Doctor then part ways, and in our last shot, Santa Claus appears to the Doctor, says neither he nor Clara is okay, and asks what he wants for Christmas. The end.
Setting us up for the Christmas special.
The alien crab facehugger Santa Claus Christmas special, yes.
Which I think we'll be talking about just in time for Christmas. So let's talk about this one, though. And a couple big things right off the bat. What was with Clara pretending to be the Doctor and that she wasn't real? I didn't feel like that kind of went anywhere. I mean, it was a little bit of a ruse.
Yeah, well, it was a ruse. It was fun, though. I enjoyed it. I mean, all it is the Cybermen are about to attack her, and she needs to they're about to kill her. And so she needs to save her life, and the way she does it is say, "You're misunderestimating me. I'm a high-value target." And they're like, no, you are not. You are Clara Oswald. You are insignificant. Ah, that's where you're wrong. I'm actually the doctor. Clara Oswald has never existed. Who could hide under your very nose? Who could change their face at will? And then they go into the credits, and we have Clara in the place of the doctor in the credits. You know, we normally have Peter Capaldi's name comes up first in the credits, and his eyes zoom up in the credits. And instead, we have Jenna Coleman zooms up first in the credits, and Jenna Coleman's eyes zoom up in the credits.
That's right.
Peter Capaldi in second place. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody actually fell for that on the first viewing. Like, did you go, wait a minute?
I didn't fall for it, but there is this putting myself in the mind of a first-time viewer and watching it again. It's kind of like, you know, she's the impossible girl, right? I mean, she has this really bizarre backstory that's intertwined with the doctor's timeline. There's just a little bit of an itch of, could this be serious? But, you know, not enough to convince, but I thought
of course, admittedly, you've got the whole, you know, biological thing of she's completely human. She's got one heart. She's not Gallifreyan. She's human. And the Cybermen can check that. I would assume they'd have some kind of.
In fact, I think they actually say something about that. Yeah.
So obviously it was just, she was being clever, and it worked until Cyber Danny showed up. At least kept him uncertain until he showed up. Let's put it that way.
Which she doesn't recognize him, you know,
right.
and she thinks he's just another Cyberman. And as she's saying it, she says, "Oh, you know, I'm an incredible liar. I could fool you. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, I fooled you that I was Clara." And he says, "Correct," and kind of lowers his head, like Danny knows that Clara has been an incredible liar. And so it's, as you realize, as you know what's going on, you're like, "Oh, that hurts. That she shouldn't have said that."
Burn,
yeah. So he rescues her. Let's jump back a little bit though to outside St. Paul's, where the Doctor and Missy and the Cybermen and all these people are posing for selfies with the Cybermen, which you're like, oh, that's so 2010s. That's such a thing we would do today.
I mean, if you see people on the streets in Hollywood or New York City dressed in costumes, you take selfies with them.
Right. And you know, people would recognize the Cybermen, right, from the last time they tried to take over the world.
I've lost track of what in New Who. What do people know about the Cybermen? Because back in the David Tennant era, they introduced that stupid parallel world Cyberman thing.
Yeah,
that was just a mistake. Just do it in the prime timeline.
Yep. Yeah, and then they came through, they went back, but we're not sure whether they changed the timeline to people forget. Right, exactly. So
they did. Yeah, they did have the guy in the morgue who was watching the TV show talking about the Cybermen and what they knew. But I got the feeling it was kind of presented as like an Art Bell type thing, conspiracy theory type show instead of actual like BBC News.
Yeah.
Right.
They also play fast and loose these days with what does the public know about aliens? Because back in the John Pertwee's day, in the Third Doctor's time, UNIT kind of hushed up all the alien invasions, and so the public didn't really know. But then after the Slitheen incursion, it was so great. The aliens the public finally knows about are the party skin suit aliens. Yeah, that's just great.
Yeah, awesome. And of course, it turns out these aren't just a bunch of clueless, you know, tourists or, you know,
not all of them.
Right. In fact, many or most are unit agents who are at the ready, apparently. And, you know, and then we have Osgood and Kate Stewart show up and, you know, take them into custody.
And this is our first appearance of Osgood, right?
No, she was in Day of the Doctor.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She was.
Yes.
But here she's great.
Oh, yeah.
And I love how she comes up and just barges her way, because Missy has got her device, you know, which looks kind of like an iPhone, and she's taking pictures with it, and she's leaning back for a selfie of herself and the Doctor. And Oswald just barges up and says, let me capture your moment for you. You're
Right.
having such a lovely moment. Let me do that. And she takes Missy's device.
Yes.
And she's just so pleasant as she disarms the master.
Osgood is just it, like as we've said before, Osgood is the fan. It's us on screen as a fanboy, fangirl of the Doctor, and knowing all the trivia, knowing all the information, and that sort of thing. And it's just so fun to see Osgood in this.
Got the line in, bow ties are cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So they don't. The unit doesn't capture the Cybermen, as you mentioned, Jimmy. The Cybermen blast off, and there are 91 of them, one for each major city and town in England. Are there only 91 major cities and towns in England?
It's only about the size of Arkansas, so yeah.
Yes. I mean, I always think of England as being bigger, but
the population is 20 times as much as Arkansas, but it's only the same size.
Mm-hmm.
It's my very American idea of England being as big as something, America or something like that. So anyway, they're going to explode and pollinate all the graves and convert them. And what I'm thinking is why do it to the dead? What, couldn't this work on the living too? Like if this,
it's less horrifying that way.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, we've had Cybermen convert living people since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You don't get the view of the Night of the Living Dead of the hand coming out of the grave.
Right. No, I mean I get like why that's more horrific. It's just it feels like a plot hole. Like if you're going to convert something, why not just buy something that can fall from the sky? Just have it land on people and convert them. But I know.
Well, yeah, but so the design of these Cybermen is they're meant to convert the dead because the dead always outnumber the living, and therefore. If you're only converting the living, if that's what your Cybermen things are designed to do, then you're limiting the size of your army.
Oh.
Whereas if you convert the dead, then you have a much bigger army, and it only grows as they kill the living.
Right.
I saw a number recently within the last week that claimed that the total number of people who've ever lived on Earth is like 120 billion.
Right.
Does that sound right?
It's under 200 billion, but yeah.
Okay. So kind of interesting. Although I wonder about the oldest ones, whether the whole process is iffy from the start.
And they don't end up doing it. That would have been so. This episode is dancing with being really offensive.
Yep.
There are a number of irksome things. The episode overall is okay, but there are things in it.
Yeah,
that run the risk of being offensive, like turning the Brigadier into a freaking Cyberman.
Yeah.
Well, turning every human that's ever lived into a Cyberman would also be offensive, but they actually avoid doing that. That's just the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, Danny Pink takes control of the currently living Cybermen and burns out the cloud. So not every human being that's ever lived ends up getting turned into a Cyberman. That would have been really offensive.
Or every dead body ever lived getting incinerated, which would set archaeology back pretty far, not to mention all the other things. Yeah.
They don't do that either.
Yeah, it just ends up being every person in graveyards within Britain, basically.
Well, I don't know that I don't know that they go that far. We only see one graveyard in the London area where everybody gets brought back.
Well, that was the 31 or the 91, one for each major town and city. So you assume that would mean one for each graveyard or each city has graveyards.
One would assume, but I don't know that they all reigned because we know one of them reigned because we see it raining and it brings some of them back as Cybermen. But they talk about the other clouds as if they have yet to reign.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, they don't give a clear idea of exactly how many we got, but there's the thread of it and the implication of it, I guess. And so
speaking of things that aren't offensive but just stupid.
Yeah.
When the cloud rains, the water goes everywhere. It goes into like a city morgue, and we see a guy who's like a morgue attendant, And then the bodies in the morgue are waking up as Cybermen. And it's like, okay, that was a human body.
Right.
A bare human body laying on a slab under a sheet. It wakes up, pulls the sheet off, and there's an entire Cyberman exoskeleton covering it.
Right.
Where did all that metal come from?
Well, that was the thing I was going to say is like, how do they convert these dead bodies? Like, where did all the stuff to cover it from? And I hate to say it, but isn't the point of Cyberman that you're using a human brain to power it? Like it's an cyborg. So what about all the bodies that don't have brains left, or, not to be too gross about it, but.
Well, presumably you either don't need a brain or, I mean, they could compensate for that. I mean, they replace everything else anyway. Or, I mean, they can replace anything else. So maybe they can replace a brain, but maybe we just don't see those.
Right. Right. It's
but this is all just Stephen Moffat science fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about other things that were offensive.
Offensive or stupid? This is a game. This is a game we should play. For this
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's play offensive
or is it stupid?
Or is it both? Why not both? So they've tranked the Doctor and Missy for some stupid reason to get him on board Boat 1, which is the unit Air Force One, because for some reason every country in the world has agreed to make an alien president of the world and in control of every nation through as a tyrant.
Yeah, they haven't agreed. They haven't agreed to make the Doctor specifically. From the way Kate phrases it, it's not that they've agreed to make the Doctor specifically president, but they've agreed to have a president to meet an alien invasion emergency, a global president, and Kate names the Doctor because he's the one who's best equipped to deal with this.
So he gets on board, and the first thing he does is insult soldiers again, because this Doctor apparently hates soldiers. Insults the colonel, who salutes him and calls him a man scout in his scout uniform
repeatedly. Yeah. This for me, this is another one of the dumb things about this episode is this whole President of Earth thing.
Yes. Then before he knows he's president of Earth, someone mentions the president is on board. He assumes it's the American president and says, Americans, they'll only start praying. So if apparently we are criticizing people for praying.
And at least now they're, I mean, that's better than the last time they brought Americans around, because previously they've pretty consistently shown Americans as being unreasonably warlike.
Right.
And it's like, if he's seeing us as only praying, it's, well, that's okay. That's less hostile than, the Americans are just going to blow stuff up.
Right. But yeah, so there's several anti-religious sort of things in this episode. So there's that criticism. And then there's this whole idea that the human concept of the afterlife is a creation of the master who throughout human history has been, instead of people going to heaven or hell, they've been just sucked up into the nethersphere for all of human history. And that's what afterlife is. Maybe
they speculate about that. And Missy has a line late in the episode that kind of goes in that direction. But earlier, the Doctor's just speculating about, well, she's a Time Lord. She's had as much time to do all this as she wants. But they elsewhere have lines talking about it's only the recently dead. So it seems they're being ambiguous about it.
Okay. But the Doctor does kind of speculate on the this idea that there is no afterlife, and it feels along with the other anti-praying thing, it just Moffat is just running out his agnostic sort of anti-religion sort of thing here. It just kind of rankles a bit. Just as a side, Moffat has a new Netflix series called Inside Man that co-stars David Tennant, by the way, which is fabulous. It's a really good series, but Tennant in it is a Anglican vicar, and you can see some of this attitude toward religion, especially Anglican religion, in that as well. So this is something that Moffat kind of has got as a chip on his shoulder about, I guess. So we have Missy is on board. She's telling the doctor that, you know, she's going to give him these coordinates to the Gallifrey, which is supposedly lost in another dimension. When did he get lost in another dimension? Was that Day of the Doctor?
Day of the Doctor, yeah. When they give the Doctor allegedly a new regeneration cycle, and then they vanish back into this pocket dimension.
Right. Okay. With the War Doctor. Right.
And at the conclusion, David Tennant's Doctor knows that it's out there, but now he has to find it, implying it's lost.
Okay. So she claims to have found it. We're told there is a bit of a funny moment here where they're talking about, oh, we've got the file on the Master, and, you know, oh, we have files on all our ex-prime ministers. And you go, oh, wait a minute.
He was.
That's right.
Yeah.
and then the line, and he wasn't even the worst.
Yeah.
Which was that's a good one. I'm okay with, you know, doing that to politicians.
In that same scene, it's Oswald who Osgood who delivers those lines. There's too many Oz names.
No kidding. It's confusing.
Clara, Oswald, Osgood. What's going on? Anyway, Osgood deduces that, you know, that Missy is the Master, because the Doctor comes up to her and is being cagey about, oh, you wouldn't even believe who she is if I told you. Oh, my guess is she was your childhood friend, the Master, who you grew up with on Gallifrey, blah, 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 blah. And at that point, he's impressed, and he invites her to become a companion.
Yes.
And, of course, she's not going to be, because Missy pops her like a balloon.
I know. It's so that was so, yes, Osgood as companion. Oh.
Yeah. I love the way they play that, though, because you've got Missy strapped between these two guards. You've got Missy strapped to, it's like a hand truck, you know. It's one of those things you roll refrigerators around on. And she's strapped to that, and she's in the plane watching Osgood work at the computer, and she's just talking to herself. She's going, "Hey, Missy, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Missy," which is an old song from like the 80s. Is "Hey, Ricky, you're so fine."
Mickey. Yeah.
Mickey, that's it.
Yeah.
And then she pesteringly invites Osgood over to talk to her, and she says, I'm gonna tell you something. In a minute, I'm going to kill you. And then she says, I'm not even kidding, but don't tell the boys, meaning the guards. It'll be our secret girl plan. And then she makes this face, you know, like we're in on this secret together.
Right.
and Osgood says, you know, why would you want to kill me? And he said, because you're pretty. I just want to pop a balloon. And Osgood, you know, leaves her and goes back over to the computer, and Missy says, what is that in your pocket? And Osgood says, there's nothing in my pocket, but she reaches in and pulls out the handcuffs Missy was wearing. And Missy says, oh, my giddy aunt, which is a callback to the second Doctor, because that was one of his phrases. And then she disintegrates Osgood.
Yeah, after the countdown. So yeah, Missy murders Osgood, but again, for Stephen Moffat, no one ever dies. Yeah. This turns out to be the Zygon Osgood, who will be replaced by another Zygon Osgood, because if you remember from the Day of the Doctor, there were two Osgoods, a Zygon and the human, and in order to have this peace, they wouldn't reveal which was which. Have
they established that the one who died here was the Zygon Osgood? I guess maybe they have.
In the Zygon invasion, it's going to come up that the one who died on the plane was the Zygon Osgood and has been replaced by another Zygon, so that there's still two Osgoods.
I know we have two now, one of which is human. So I guess it has to be a Zygon who died here.
Right.
During lockdown, for COVID, the actress who plays Osgood did the two Osgoods talk to each other over Skype about the lockdown experiences video.
Yes. I remember seeing that. Yes, that was good. That was good. There were so many good little shorts that they did during lockdown. Those were fun. So and then we have the Cybermen attack the plane, and that's going on. Meanwhile,
first though, we get a literal Tomb of the Cybermen shot,
right,
where it's raining on the cemetery, and we see the Cybermen's hands bursting up through the ground, and them coming out of their tombs for once.
Right. And these newly hatched, shall we say, Cybermen aren't under control. They're kind of just there. They're not. Missy hasn't, asserted cyber control over them, I guess. There isn't a cyber controller, I guess.
Yeah. They just have their emotions wiped, so they have no motivations, and they're just standing there.
Yeah, just kind of hanging out. Meanwhile, again, we have Clara in the cemetery, brought there by Cyber Danny. She still doesn't know who he is, and unknowingly provokes Danny by saying the doctor is the closest person to her, the one man she would never lie to. Again, I'm like, and he nearly shoots her, which was shocking.
I think that was his cyber programming asserting control that he then overrode. That's at least how I took that.
Oh, okay.
I took it. He just got so mad that it was a reaction.
Yeah.
Is simple as it's not even cyber programming. It's human. It's human. The fact he still got his emotions, that he was, controlling he had to control his anger. And when he didn't, it would cause that.
Right. Yeah, because he's in so much emotional pain that that she provoked this reaction from him, I guess, and because she thought she was just saying this to a Cyberman in order to get him to back off. So
I guess
this is when
trying to think through his situation, because he is fairly recently dead. He's been on a kind of roller coaster, I guess, emotionally. So.
That'd be a bad day.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I was reading the Bardo Thadal, which is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it has,
as you do,
as you do, and it's what it is it's essentially a long text that is meant to be, you're meant to read it during life, but then they also read it to you after you're dead, and it's instructions about how to navigate the afterlife, how to get to where you want to go. And it's got all this different stuff which is supposed to be read to you about, okay, and first you're going to encounter this, and then you're going to encounter that, and here's what you do, and it's rather lengthy text. It goes on and on. But during a certain part of the text, you're supposed to become aware of what's happening with your body, because you're going to see your body, you're going to see your relatives mourning you. And it kind of cycles through this a few times, but it describes the thought process of the dead person, because you're talking to the dead person. It says, okay, you're going to see your body, you're going to see your family mourning, you're going to see the servants, and they're going to be weeping, and they're going to be eating the special food for when you die. And you're going to think to yourself, oh no, I am dead. What shall I do? and just like, don't try to get back in your body, because that's not going to work. Instead, here's what you do. But I just love that thought process of the, oh no, I am dead. What shall I do?
Shocked. I'm shocked. What happened? So we have this. I was going to say so Missy reveals that she brought the Doctor and Clara together in the first place. The Clara and the 11th Doctor, the phone call from the lady at the computer shop.
Yep.
Does she explain what she was doing? Why?
Apparently, it was all a big setup for this.
Okay. What was it that bringing Clara together with the Doctor was meant to do for this? That's what I was unclear on.
Yeah, it's not really integrated plot-wise, is it?
No. I mean, I think it comes up again next season, like the very beginning when they go to Gallifrey, Missy and Clara together, and I think it comes up again. I don't recall.
Go to Skaro.
Don't they go to? Oh, right. I think it's Skaro. Right. That's what it is. Which is familiar.
I mean, this is just Stephen Moffat closing up a loophole or a plot hole that he had created way back when.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like.
Yeah. So in any case, she has the Cybermen tear the plane apart. Kate Stewart falls out of the plane. Now, I want to pause here. Are we sure that Kate Stewart isn't also the master? Because she seems to survive a lot of bad things.
This one was explained.
Yes, it was. But she's the survivor.
For those who haven't seen the episode, off screen, her Cyberman dad, the Brigadier, grabs her as she's falling and delivers her safely to the ground.
Yes. You just call him Cyberbrig?
It's the Cyberbrig. So, the doctor, meanwhile, ends up on the ground with Danny, Cyber Danny, and Clara in the cemetery, and he's trying to convince Clara to stop trying to turn off the emotions. Clara's trying to turn off the emotions for Danny to save him from that pain, and the doctor's trying to tell her, don't do that, and tells Danny, pain is a gift. Without the capacity for pain, we can't feel the hurt we inflict on others. And Danny kind of shows the doctor's kind of being a hypocrite here, isn't he?
He totally turns the line around on him. It's like, oh, he doesn't say it this way, but it's like, oh, well, I guess that explains you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, then he also says, he reveals that the emotional inhibitor needs to be switched on in order for Danny to find out what the big cyber plan is.
Right.
And so now he's like, no, now your previous high-minded words about pain are forgotten now that it provides a tactical advantage, and starts doing the thing about the doctor being an officer as opposed to Danny being a sergeant.
And so this is on this is where Stephen Moffat can be really good, which is on an emotional dialogue level, because Danny is effectively dressing down the doctor here. And the doctor admits and acknowledges, yeah, I need this information. I do need you to turn off your emotions. And then we're going to just have to take that risk. And they do. And then it turns out that he already knew the plan.
Right.
It had already been completely explained to the audience. We're not learning anything new here.
Right.
So you got this big emotional buildup for no payoff.
Well, and I thought it was kind of stupid, because the doctor, even as he's doing, he's like, I don't want to do this. This is not, I need to do this to save the world, but I really don't want to do this. And Danny's sitting there dressing him down for it, like you said. And it's just like, Danny, did you just listen to him? He literally said he's only doing this because he's trying to save all of humanity. It's not like he's doing this to be some great general or soldier.
Right.
And then when he continues to dress him down for making Clara do it. By the way, he doesn't dress down Clara in the process for doing it. The doctor's still like, I'm not going to do this. I'm out of here. And he walks away. And it's just like, okay, this didn't work for me as well as it might have for you. But I thought it was kind of jerkish, to be honest, the way it was done.
Well, that's the thing about Danny and the doctor, is they're just jerks to each other.
Yeah.
I always felt this whole soldier officer thing felt a little unreasonable throughout.
A little.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I get Danny's resentment of the doctor. That's a pretty good, he's got good reason to be resentful and a little bit jealous, but I think this whole romantic triangle thing was handled so much better with Amy and Rory and the 11th Doctor.
Yeah.
This one is just, I don't know. It never worked.
Well, the thing is, it worked so well with Amy and Rory and the 11th Doctor, they can't just do the same thing again. So that's why that's why they keep Danny as an antagonist.
And this don't do it. A romantic triangle as it was with Amy, Rory, and the 11th.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not. It's because the 12th doesn't have any romantic interest, and that was what I think was a good decision from the beginning. But...
Oh yeah, and. I mean, I get Danny being a little jealous of Clara, going off on these adventures and worried for her and that sort of thing. But this soldier officer thing, that always rankled with me. I just never liked it.
And they do call it out, here in a little bit when the doctor says, I am an idiot. I am not and he says, I am not an officer. He looks right at Danny, says, I am not an officer.
Right. So meanwhile, Missy arrives on her umbrella like a demented Mary Poppins, which is awesome.
Descends from the heavens like Mary Poppins, only demented. Yes.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, if you can't tell, folks, we all love Missy.
Oh, yeah.
So, as you mentioned, Jimmy, Missy gives him the cyber army, and either he uses it to conquer the universe and impose good on everyone, or she'll kill everyone on Earth because she wants them to know that they aren't so different. And this is her demented motivation.
Yeah, and she says happy birthday, and he's like, what? And she said, oh, you've forgotten, haven't you? So this is apparently the doctor's birthday.
Right.
But she says happy birthday, Mr. President, with imitating the Marilyn Monroe to Jack Kennedy happy birthday song.
Yeah.
And this actually echoes back, I forget the exact episode. It's the one with the creepy little brain creature, dwarf, badly put together puppet episode on maybe it's Colony in Space. Anyway, it's from the season where the Master first appeared, where he's in every episode.
Oh, right.
And it's like, I think the last or next to last of the stories in that series, where they go to this alien planet and there's an ancient underground civilization. They're kind of ripping off Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Where there's this underground civilization has mind powers, and it's controlled by a tiny child man puppet alien. And they've got this fantastic technology, which the Master, of course, wants to use for his own good, but he offers to co-rule with the Doctor and let the Doctor use all this alien tech for good. And he's telling him, you can do good. I'm offering this to you. And so this is like, to my mind, this is they're bringing that same theme from the Master's past back, of the Master, in a sense. Yeah, the Master wants control, and the Master wants to be buds with the Doctor again. Missy explicitly says it, I want my friend back. And her / the Master's idea of how to do this is to give the Doctor the technology to rule and to do good with.
Right, but also to kind of prove to the Doctor that somehow
they're the same.
that they're the same, which is kind of interesting. This idea that people never see themselves as necessarily evil; that they always are pursuing a good. I mean, that idea, and so Missy says, "I'm just following my end, my destiny. This is what I meant to be, and you're not so different from me." I guess. So I don't know if that was coherent, but there's kind of an interesting motivation. It's not simply, I'm seeking power for power's sake and I want to rule the world. Which, by the way, the Doctor has a great line earlier on the plane where he says to Missy, by the way, all those times you tried to take over the world, yeah, they just gave it to me.
Yeah.
I like that one. So she gives the cyber control bracelet to the Doctor, and then he flips it to Danny, the one Cyberman not under control. And this is where he gives that line that love is not an emotion, it's a promise. Although I think it maybe more accurately, it's an act of the will. But I think that the idea here is correct, that love, even though the inhibitor is on, love is not just an emotion, it's an act of the will, or it's a promise.
It's a choice. And that's something that is that they're doing good here.
Yes.
This is genuine insight that Stephen Moffat is correct about for once. And it is a message that our society needs, because we have this screwed up idea of love as just a romantic thing. And as soon as you don't have the feels, you just dump whoever it was that you had previously made a commitment to.
Yep. And if you get the feels for someone else, well, it's time to move on. Yeah,
exactly.
Romance, love is not romance, and love exists even when you're old and decrepit and you don't have the same goo eyes that you had when you were 20. It's something you do.
Because your goo eyes have cataracts.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and as JP2 would put it, is love is doing what is best for the other for their sake.
Yeah,
choosing to do what's good for the other for their sake.
Well, and in fact, it's also self-sacrificial, which is what we see Danny doing here. Is love, if it was just an emotion, you would do anything to stay with the person you love. if that was all it was an emotion. But in this sense, the love for someone else means the ultimate good is to preserve Clara by sacrificing himself, and so that's what he does. So you're right, Jimmy. That this is where Moffat gets it right, and I think this is a kind of redeems a lot of the bad stuff in this episode. Not everything, but it redeems it part way at least. So,
and I don't think this episode is horrible by any means. It just has parts in it that it's like, okay, here we go for a Stephen Moffat series finale. We're not going to completely stick the landing again, are we?
No.
Right. So Danny takes the Cybermen up into the atmosphere to burn up all the clouds, the cyber clouds. And meanwhile, Missy's still there, and Clara wants to kill, as you mentioned, Clara wants to kill Missy. She demands that Missy die. She says to the doctor, she has to die, or everything that's happened today is on you, doctor. I'm not sure why. Like,
just so Stephen Moffat can have a dramatic ending.
Yeah, because I mean, logically speaking, I mean, I know she's speaking for, emotionally here, but logically speaking, you know, Missy dying doesn't change anything about what happened. So
right. Nor does it give if Missy survives, it doesn't give the doctor added responsibility.
Right. He's you know, he has as much responsibility as he's always had for whatever's happened. So and that's when the single remaining Cyberman kills Missy, because apparently the Brigadier also wasn't under cyber control like the others were. So that's kind of interesting.
And that's how he was able to rescue Kate Stewart.
Yes. And we have this moment where the doctor salutes the Brigadier, which is close to the loop on a previous, when they were on the plane, when he says, Kate
told him that secretly the Brigadier always wanted the doctor to salute him. And the doctor says, why didn't he ask?
Right. And so here he fulfills that promise, which is a nice moment. I mean, as fans of a classic Who are always, I think, enjoy these sorts of little bits of moments that harken back.
It's a nice moment ruined by the fact that it was the Cyber Brigadier instead.
Yes, I know.
The regular Brigadier.
So then we jump forward.
I would rather lose the doctor saluting the Brigadier, which was never brought up as something to care about before. Yeah. I would rather lose that than if we also had the option of simultaneously losing the Cyber Brigadier.
Yeah,
right. Let the Brigadier rest in peace. So then we jump forward in time 2 weeks later, and Clara is awakened in the night by Danny's voice. And it's revealed no one ever dies under Stephen Moffat's tenure. And Danny is alive somewhere in another dimension. And
I don't think that's fair. Danny is dead. His spirit may survive. But he's dead. He doesn't get to be with Clara. He sacrifices his chance to be with Clara to send this kid back.
Well, yes, but I guess. I mean,
if you're gonna say that Danny is really still alive, just in another dimension or something, you're gonna have to say, oh, in the Christian faith, nobody ever really dies. Your spirit is alive in another dimension.
Well, okay, but they've already established the idea that the afterlife isn't real in this.
No, they haven't. The doctor was expressly open to the idea last episode. Moffat, they haven't established anything. Moffat has little snarky lines he throws in here and there, but they're not meant to be definitive of the universe.
So where are they? Are they back in the Nethersphere? Because how does using this bracelet bring you back from the afterlife?
It's Stephen Moffat series ending fantasy magic.
I guess.
There's no rational explanation for it.
Yeah. I mean, there's an emotional satisfaction in Danny making the ultimate final sacrifice. Once again, sacrificing his happiness for the sake of someone else and proving that Danny is the better man, I guess. But yeah, it rankles a little bit because I don't know. It doesn't feel like it makes sense, but okay.
Well, I'll give you that. It doesn't make sense. But I don't think I don't think we should overly harp on every little thing that could be read as someone coming back from the dead, because Danny doesn't come back from the dead.
Right. Well, when I initially watched this the first time, I was frustrated at the end of this, and I might have mentioned it when we first discussed this, which is I didn't know how to feel about Danny. Like, just, is he gone? Is he not gone? Is it what's going on here with Danny? Because he's like, if he gets hit by the car and he's dead and gone, then it has an emotional impact.
Mm-hmm.
But he's gone, he's not gone, he's gone, he's not gone. What's going on? And by the end of it, I'm like, is he coming back? Like, are we going to come back next season and Danny's there? Like, it just feels incomplete, and thus it fails at providing the emotional impact that I think they're trying to make because of that. That's my opinion on it anyway. So.
Yeah, I think that Danny has a messy exit, but he's got an exit.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's proven that he has, that he's gone. So they have a meeting. The doctor and Clara meet up in a cafe, and the doctor sees. This is a little bit of a frustrating thing that I feel that I don't like in a lot of TV writing, which is the plot advances in this direction because people make assumptions and don't actually communicate properly.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor sees the Danny bracelet.
That's the driving force for a number of Sherlock Holmes stories. This is not new.
It's true.
Sussex Vampire, the Yellow Face. I mean, any of those stories, if the person simply did what a normal human would do and explain, we wouldn't have a story.
True. So the doctor assumes that Danny got back because he sees the bracelet and then assumes that because of it, Clara wants to tell him that she doesn't want to travel anymore. He refuses to stop and listen to her as she's trying to talk. And then he lies to Clara that he found Gallifrey, and so he's going home. And she, like you mentioned, she lies back that she and Danny will be fine without him. And so they're both going to be unhappy because they're not talking to each other, which is,
of course she doesn't stop him and tell him to shut up for a second and let her talk, because as a normal person would do,
Yes, Clara has done it many times. So, yeah.
So this is, I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to check, but Jenna Coleman apparently was planning to leave the series several times and ended up extending her stay several times. And I know that in the Alien Facehugger Christmas special, that was one of her exit points. And I think this may have been one of her exit points too. That we may, because it really actually balances. It's dark, but it balances nicely. They get a genuine goodbye where they've benefited from being together and they're not together anymore. And actually, as a companion, if this had been the actual companion exit, it would have been one of the more interesting ones.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit the normal, I guess it's time, Doctor. I've just fallen in love with Sabalam Glitz and now we're going to get married. And, so it having this emotionally complex ending for the two characters, that would be very interesting as a companion exit. And I think this may have been planned as a companion exit, and then they held her over for the Christmas special. And then they wrote a new exit for there, and then they have another one beyond that when she finally does leave.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Actually, that you mentioned, I do seem to recall that they were looking to give her an out at the end of this one.
Yeah, so she's not only the impossible girl that keeps showing up impossibly in history. Not only does she keep showing up, she keeps refusing to leave.
She's the impossible guest.
Yeah. The thing that wouldn't leave.
So, and then as you mentioned, we get this mid-credits sequence, like we get the credits start and then stop, and then we have Nick Frost as Santa show up and basically tell the doctor that he and Clara are both wrong. Do you think this was...
I think that was added in post, because that's why it's mid-credits.
Right.
Because the episode was already filmed and done.
Right. And this was like, we've decided to bring her back for Last Christmas, and so that was the way to hook that in. Okay, so yeah. So last thoughts on this episode, Father Cory?
All in all, I enjoyed this. It wasn't as good as the first part of the two-parter, but it was still, with the complaints we've talked about, things being borderline, right on that borderline between offensive and stupid. I like that. I like that little way of categorizing them. It was a good episode. It wasn't too bad at all. It was a good conclusion to a season.
It made way more sense than the Wet Ring of River song.
Right. How about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, it was a fine episode. I mean, broadly speaking, it's something I don't cringe at the idea of watching. And I'm glad in watching it this time and really paying attention. It's like, okay, they don't turn every human who's ever lived into a Cyberman. Okay, well, that's less offensive. Good.
That's true. That's true.
I will say one thing we didn't mention that was stupid is you've got flying Cybermen. So let's get on a plane.
Right. It's not going to be better. Maybe go underground. That might have been better. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it could be of some advantage. I mean, the reason we have the mobile nuclear bunker, even though nuclear missiles fly, we still have a mobile nuclear bunker for the president to at least be mobile and moving around.
The difference between a nuclear missile and a Cyberman can jump on the plane as it's flying and tear it apart.
Yeah, that's true.
Consider, if you will, maybe a submarine next time. We'll see. How about a giant wooden badger? So that's a Monty Python reference. Yep. All right. So I think that does it for now on this one. We want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Teresa C., Adam P., Susan B., Sandra C., and Mark L. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at Dark West, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode for us. So that's it from us. We would love to know what you thought of Death in Heaven, this 12th Doctor story. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page. Send an email to drwho@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can now watch The Secrets of Doctor Who in full video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the second Doctor story, for real this time, The Wheel in Space. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Don.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Don.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, that's your answer for everything, isn't it? Vote for an idiot.